In the midst of the dense fog on a cold night, a man staggers through the deserted streets, muttering disjointed words. His eyes are wide with terror, and his labored breath carries the weight of the unknown. His name? Edgar Allan Poe. Taken to the hospital, he deliriously thrashes in fever. No one understands what he is trying to say, and his last words remain a mystery. But when they search through his belongings, a macabre detail stands out. Scrawled on a piece of paper, a single word. Croatoan, and he was not the only one. The aviator Amelia Earhart, before vanishing forever, allegedly wrote that same word in her logbook. In the charred remains of old abandoned hospitals, Croatoan was found scrawled on the walls like a final warning of something that should never be uncovered. But it all started long before. It all began in 1587, when an entire colony vanished without a trace. On the far reaches of the eastern coast of North America, the explorer John White led a group of 115 English colonists to Roanoke Island, in what is now North Carolina. They were there to establish the first English colony in America. At first, the future seemed promising, but the challenges soon became insurmountable. Hunger loomed over the settlements, supplies were scarce, and the colonists feared attacks from native tribes. John White, desperate for reinforcements, sailed back to England in search of provisions. But fate had other plans. The English Empire went to war with Spain, and White was prevented from returning for 3 long years. When he finally managed to return to Roanoke, he found a terrifying scene. The colony was empty. There were no bodies, no signs of struggle, no footprints in the sand. It was as if the people had simply vanished. The only clue left behind was a word carved into a tree trunk: Croatoan. White never found his compatriots. No evidence was discovered that could explain what had happened. The mystery of the lost colony of Roanoke remains unsolved to this day. Since the mystery emerged, various theories have attempted to explain the fate of the colony. Some are rational, while others delve into the supernatural. Destiny 1. The colonists assimilated with the Croatoans. Croatoan was the name of a native tribe that inhabited a nearby island, now known as Hatteras. To many historians, this inscription suggested that the colonists had moved to the territory of the Croatoans in search of safety. But why didn't they leave a clearer trail? Why didn't they send messages or signals of their location? The answers, like the colony itself, seem to have vanished into time. The most widely accepted hypothesis is that the colonists, facing starvation, disease, and the constant threat of attacks from hostile tribes, decided to integrate with the Croatoans. This theory gained strength over the centuries, especially with archaeological and genetic discoveries suggesting a merging of the two groups. In 1998, a DNA study conducted with descendants of the natives in the North Carolina region revealed European genetic traits in some families. These traits, though not conclusive, point to the possibility that the Roanoke colonists intermingled with the Croatoans, adopting their customs and abandoning their European identity. But how would this integration have taken place? Imagine the scenario. Desperate, starving, and exhausted colonists approaching the Croatoans in search of help. The natives, initially cautious, might have seen in those foreigners an opportunity to strengthen their own community. The colonists, in turn, would have adapted to the local way of life, learning to hunt, fish, and cultivate the land according to indigenous traditions. Over time, the boundaries between the two cultures would have dissolved, giving rise to a new hybrid community. However, this theory is not without controversy. The lack of concrete evidence, such as European artifacts in Croatoan archaeological sites, raises doubts about the extent of this integration. Additionally, the historical records of the Croatoans themselves are scarce, making it difficult to reconstruct this chapter of history with precision. Some scholars suggest that the word Croatoan carved into the tree was not just an indication of destination, but also a warning. Perhaps the colonists were forced to integrate with the natives, either due to external pressure or desperate circumstances. Others speculate that the word could have a deeper meaning, linked to rituals or spiritual beliefs shared between the two groups. The narrative becomes even more intriguing when we consider the oral accounts of the descendants of the Croatoans. Some stories speak of pale people who arrived on the island in ancient times, bringing with them strange knowledge and customs. These accounts, though difficult to verify, echo the possibility of a cultural fusion that transcended the barriers of time. Destiny 2, Massacre or Famine. Among the theories attempting to explain the disappearance of the colony, one of the darkest suggests that the colonists fell victim to a massacre perpetrated by hostile tribes or succumbed to starvation while attempting to flee inland. This hypothesis, though plausible, runs into a troubling question. Why were no human remains or evidence of a bloody conflict found? The story begins to take shape when we look at the context of the time. The Roanoke Colony was established in a contested territory, where native tribes like the Secretans and the Powhatans lived in constant tension with the newly arrived English settlers. The colonists, already weakened by hunger and disease, relied on supplies sent from England. When those supplies failed to arrive, the situation became unsustainable. Some historians suggest that the desperate colonists may have attempted to ally themselves with friendly tribes such as the Croatoans, but were intercepted by hostile groups. A surprise attack could explain the absence of bodies in the settlement. If the colonists were captured and taken away, their remains could be scattered across unknown locations far from the island. However, the lack of archaeological evidence, such as weapons, bones, or signs of violence, casts doubt on this theory. Another possibility is that the colonists attempted to flee inland in search of food and shelter. The journey would have been arduous, especially for a group already weakened by hunger. If they succumbed to the elements, disease, or animal attacks, their bodies could have been consumed by nature, leaving few traces. The dense forests and swamps of the region would have made it difficult to locate any trail. But there is a detail that puzzles scholars: the absence of personal belongings or signs of a hasty escape. If the colonists had left in search of survival, it is likely they would have taken tools, weapons, and other possessions with them. However, the settlement was found relatively organized, as if they had left in a planned manner. This raises the possibility that the colonists were taken by force without time to gather their belongings. The mystery deepens when we consider the archaeological silence. Excavations conducted on Roanoke Island and the surrounding areas have not revealed human remains or artifacts that prove a massacre. This has led some researchers to question whether the disappearance of the colonists was truly the result of a conflict. Could hunger and disease have been enough to wipe out the entire colony without leaving traces? Or is there something more sinister behind this silence? Destiny 3, Curse and Forbidden Rituals. To the natives of the region, Roanoke Island was a cursed place, guarded by an evil spirit that punished those who dared disturb its rest. Ancient legends spoke of an entity that dwelled in the depths of the forest, an ancestral being that demanded sacrifices in exchange for protection. Could the colonists, desperate for survival, have attempted to invoke this entity? The theory that the colonists performed forbidden rituals gains strength when we consider the context of the time. The Roanoke colony was on the brink of collapse. Hunger, disease, and the constant threat of attacks from hostile tribes had undermined the colonists' morale. In their despair, it is possible that they turned to dark practices, seeking help from forces they did not understand. Imagine the scene: a dark, starless night where the only sound was the crackling of a bonfire. The colonists, gathered in a circle, attempted to invoke something beyond their understanding. Perhaps they used ancient symbols and words, learned from the natives or brought from their distant lands. The ritual, performed under the watchful gaze of the moon, could have been a desperate attempt to secure protection or even to open a portal to a safe place. But what happened when the ritual was completed? The word Croatoan, carved into the tree, could have been a final warning before something terrible occurred. Perhaps the colonists were taken to another reality, a plane of existence beyond human comprehension. Or perhaps they awakened something that should have remained dormant, Accounts from natives of the region speak of a presence that inhabits the island, a force that cannot be seen but is felt like a weight in the air. Some modern explorers who visited Roanoke reported inexplicable experiences, voices whispering in unknown languages, shadows moving among the trees, and a constant feeling of being watched. These accounts echo the ancient legends about the evil spirit that guards the island. Destiny 4, a portal to another dimension. The theory that Roanoke Island could be a point of intersection between dimensions gains strength when we consider the accounts of modern explorers and the ancient legends surrounding the region. The island, located off the coast of what is now North Carolina, has always been shrouded in mystery. To some natives of the region, Roanoke was a sacred but dangerous place. They believed the island was guarded by ancestral spirits and that certain areas were portals to other worlds. Imagine the scene. A dark, starless night, where the only sound was the crackling of a bonfire. The colonists, desperate for survival, may have ventured into parts of the island that were considered forbidden. Perhaps they encountered something beyond their understanding. A clearing where the air seemed to vibrate, or a cave whose walls echoed whispers in unknown languages. What if, in a moment of desperation, they crossed a threshold into another dimension? Accounts from modern explorers who visited the island speak of inexplicable experiences. Some heard voices whispering in the woods, as if being called by something invisible. Others saw shadows moving among the trees, humanoid shapes that vanished as soon as they were noticed. One explorer, in 1998, described a feeling of being pulled toward a specific area of the forest, where the air seemed heavier and time flowed differently. The theory of a dimensional portal becomes even more intriguing when we consider subsequent events. In 1937, archaeologist Theodore Palmer vanished while exploring the island. His camp was found intact, but he was never seen again. The recorder he left running captured only static and white noise, except for one final word, whispered in a ghostly tone, Croatoan. Did Palmer, like the colonists before him, cross a threshold into another world? Or was he taken by the same entity the colonists attempted to invoke? The lack of concrete evidence only fuels the mystery. The idea of a dimensional portal is not unique to Roanoke. In various cultures around the world, there are legends about places that serve as portals to other planes of existence. These locations are often described as areas where the veil between worlds is thinner, allowing the passage of entities or even people. If the Roanoke colonists truly crossed a portal, where did they go? Some theories suggest they may have been transported to a parallel dimension, where time and space function differently. Others speculate that they may have been absorbed by an entity or cosmic force that inhabits the island. As the night fog envelops Roanoke Island, the word Croatoan continues to echo like a silent warning. Was it a call for help, a farewell signal, or a curse left by those who dared to challenge the forces of the unknown? The fate of the colonists remains an enigma, but one thing is certain. Roanoke Island holds secrets that may never be revealed. And as the wind continues to whisper through the trees, the question persists. What really happened on that fateful night?